Welcome back to Crypto Equation, and today we need to talk about something unfolding right now, that most people are not prepared for, something that only becomes clear when politics, finance, and digital assets collide at the highest levels. Because minutes ago, new information involving Trump and the future direction of United States crypto policy has started circulating, and it is already sending shockwaves through the digital asset world, especially for XRP holders. This is not speculation, this is not hype, this is not another recycled rumor. This is a genuine shift in tone, direction, and strategic interest that directly affects the future of regulatory clarity, liquidity expansion, and digital settlement frameworks that XRP has been waiting for since the beginning. What just happened changes everything, not because one person can move markets, but because political power shapes the rules that markets are forced to operate under. And the United States is about to shift those rules in a way that could accelerate XRP's path into the real financial system faster than anyone expected. People forget that markets do not move on emotion alone, they move on policy, on regulation, on legal clarity, on institutional permission. And right now, the political conversation around digital assets is hotter, louder, and more aggressive than any moment in the past decade. Trump's recent comments on digital assets, combined with the reports circulating online, show a picture that is becoming harder to ignore, a picture where the United States is no longer fighting crypto, but preparing to embrace it strategically and methodically. This matters for one simple reason. If the United States changes its stance, digital assets with real-world use cases like XRP move from speculation into infrastructure overnight. And that is why what happened minutes ago is so important. The first thing we need to understand is that Trump's recent commentary signals a shift in attitude toward digital assets, not as speculative tools, but as strategic national technologies. When a political figure at that level acknowledges the importance of blockchain transparency, settlement, efficiency, and financial competitiveness, it means the narrative around digital assets is about to change dramatically. For years, digital assets were treated as distractions. Now they are being treated as tools of economic strength. And whenever that shift happens, the assets closest to financial rails rise in relevance. XRP is at the center of that category. The second thing we need to notice is the increasing political focus on regaining monetary advantage. The United States sees how quickly the rest of the world is adopting digital rails, launching CBDCs, accelerating instant payment networks, and modernizing cross-border settlement. The global financial landscape is changing, and the United States cannot afford to fall behind. When politicians begin speaking publicly about digital assets as part of a national strategy, it means the government is preparing for a structural shift. And structural shifts always lead to regulatory alignment. XRP has been waiting for that alignment since its inception. The third thing we must address is how Trump's position indirectly impacts XRP. He is not endorsing any specific asset, but he is signaling support for a freer, more innovation-focused digital asset environment. And when regulatory pressure decreases, liquidity opens. When liquidity opens, institutions enter. When institutions enter, settlement assets gain importance. This is not about favoritism. This is about infrastructure. Any political environment that favors innovation rapidly increases the relevance of assets that serve real functions. XRP is one of those assets. The fourth point is the most important. The current regulatory bottleneck restricting XRP has never been about technology. It has always been political. When political pressure eases even slightly, market behavior changes exponentially. And minutes ago, we witnessed the start of a narrative shift powerful enough to push the digital asset conversation into mainstream policy. This is where things get interesting. XRP is not positioned as a speculative token. It is positioned as a settlement instrument, as a liquidity tool, as a connector between financial systems. And political environments that support innovation naturally accelerate the adoption of tools built for financial efficiency. The fifth truth we must confront is that global liquidity migration has already begun, and politics is the last major barrier standing in XRP's way. Banks worldwide are upgrading messaging systems. Settlement rails are modernizing. Tokenization frameworks are expanding. Corporations are integrating digital treasury systems. The world is moving toward instant settlement faster than the public realizes. The only missing piece is national clarity. And today's political shift pushes the United States closer to acknowledging the need for digital settlement technologies. You cannot ignore this. The sixth truth is that every major financial transformation in history began with a political shift long before the public understood what was happening. The gold standard collapsed because of politics. The dollar rose because of politics. Interest rate control expanded because of politics. Digital settlement will rise because of politics. Political acknowledgement is the spark. Market recognition is the fuel. Institutional adoption is the wildfire. XRP sits right in the path of this evolution. The seventh truth is that digital assets are becoming part of geopolitical strategy. The world is fragmenting into digital economic blocks, countries launching CBDCs, regions building instant payment networks, nations competing for digital liquidity dominance. The United States must respond. Trump's rhetoric shows an awareness that digital liquidity will play a role in national competitiveness. That means assets designed for interoperability become strategic assets. And that positions XRP directly in the center of the geopolitical conversation. The eighth truth is that markets move in anticipation, not reaction. Investors act before policy changes are finalized. Institutions position quietly before clarity is official. Whales accumulate before announcements go public. This is how smart money behaves. If political tone is shifting today, the market will respond long before laws are passed. This is why minutes ago matters so much. This is the beginning of anticipation. The ninth truth is that the United States wants to regain control of liquidity flow. Right now, cross-border settlement is slow, inefficient, and expensive. This weakens national competitiveness. Digital settlement increases speed, efficiency, and transparency. XRP is one of the few assets designed to support that settlement layer at scale. If the United States embraces digital settlement technology, it does not need to choose XRP directly. It only needs to create conditions where assets with real use cases thrive, and XRP thrives in environments where innovation is no longer blocked. The 10th truth is that political shifts create market windows. These windows open briefly, accelerate quickly, and then close forever. Right now, a window is opening. A window where the United States begins taking digital assets seriously. A window where regulatory clarity becomes a political talking point. A window where institutional curiosity grows fast. A window where liquidity moves before the public wakes up. This is how financial resets begin. The 11th truth is that Trump's statements have ignited conversations across financial circles about regulatory modernization. This is not about one person. This is about influence. When political influence meets economic necessity, change accelerates. And XRP's entire value proposition is tied to that acceleration. The 12th truth is the fear that markets have been hiding. The fear that once clarity arrives, XRP will no longer be easy to accumulate. That supply will vanish into institutions. That settlement corridors will consume liquidity permanently. That retail will be priced out. This fear is not paranoia. It is reality. Political shifts accelerate institutional timelines. Institutional timelines accelerate corridor activation. Corridor activation accelerates supply disappearance. This is why news like this matters so much. You cannot ignore it because the system cannot avoid it. The 13th truth is the global coordination happening behind the scenes. Banks upgrading infrastructure, regulators aligning frameworks, corporations modernizing treasury systems, governments exploring CBDCs. Every piece of this puzzle fits together, and XRP is designed to sit in the center of that puzzle. Political alignment is the missing piece. Today, that piece began to move. The 14th truth is liquidity migration. Liquidity is the blood of global finance, and liquidity always moves to where systems are fastest, cheapest, and most predictable. If the United States embraces digital settlement infrastructure, liquidity migrates instantly into assets that support that infrastructure. This is not speculation. This is economic gravity, and that gravity pulls XRP forward. The 15th truth is the psychological turning point. People have spent years ignoring XRP because they could ignore it. Now they cannot. Political recognition makes XRP harder to dismiss. Institutional interest makes XRP harder to dismiss. Global infrastructure upgrades make XRP harder to dismiss, and the moment the world can no longer dismiss it is the moment early holders gain their advantage. In part 2, we will go deeper into the institutional implications, the liquidity mechanics, the settlement transformation, and how today's political shift could accelerate XRP's role in the new global financial architecture faster than anyone expects. Because now that we have set the stage for how today's political shift intersects with digital finance, we need to go deeper into the underlying mechanics, the institutional behaviors, the liquidity frameworks, and the global financial transformation that makes this moment so important for XRP holders. Moments like this do not happen randomly. They happen when the world reaches a point where old systems cannot support new economic realities. And right now, the world is entering that point. What happened minutes ago was not simply a political statement. It was a signal that the United States is preparing for a financial realignment. And when realignments happen, assets with real-world utility rise from speculation into necessity. XRP is one of the few assets prepared for that shift. The 16th truth we must examine is regulatory sequencing. Regulation does not happen all at once. It happens in phases. Phase 1 is political signaling. Phase 2 is public discussion. Phase 3 is draft legislation. Phase 4 is regulatory interpretation. Phase 5 is institutional integration. We are now entering Phase 1. This is the beginning of the timeline that leads to clarity, and clarity leads to adoption. When political figures endorse digital asset innovation, the rest of the system moves accordingly. Agencies adjust tone. Regulators adjust priorities. Institutions adjust positioning. Markets adjust pricing. This chain reaction is already starting. The 17th truth is that liquidity migration amplifies political shifts. Institutions do not wait for final regulation. They position early. Banks preparing for digital settlement begin exploring liquidity options. Corporations preparing for automated financial flows begin anticipating settlement assets. Payment providers preparing for cross-border modernization begin integrating new rails. These movements lay the foundation for digital settlement, and XRP is positioned to support that settlement layer. Political tone accelerates these movements. This is why today matters. The 18th truth is that settlement demand grows exponentially, not linearly. Once digital economies move into full automation, volume increases at speeds that legacy rails cannot sustain. Traditional settlement speed cannot handle automated financial systems. Traditional liquidity models cannot handle tokenized value. Traditional rails cannot handle instant commerce. The world needs settlement assets that operate on digital speed. XRP is designed to meet this demand. Political recognition of digital transformation accelerates the adoption of assets built for digital settlement. 3 minutes of political commentary can have more impact than 3 years of market speculation. The 19th truth is the end of pre-funded liquidity. This is one of the biggest financial shifts in history. Banks currently trap trillions of dollars in accounts around the world simply to facilitate slow settlement. This waste is no longer acceptable in a digital world. Political recognition of blockchain efficiency is the first step in unlocking these trillions. The moment governments acknowledge the inefficiency of pre-funded liquidity, the pressure to adopt new settlement rails becomes enormous. XRP sits at the center of this new model. Political alignment increases the probability of rapid transition. The 20th truth is the convergence of global regulatory frameworks. Countries worldwide are aligning their digital asset regulations. This eliminates fragmentation. This enables cross-border digital settlement. This unlocks global liquidity. This creates unified standards for digital finance. The United States is one of the final major players to join this alignment. Trump's comments signal a shift toward participating rather than resisting. This will accelerate global regulatory synchronization. And when synchronization occurs, settlement assets become structurally important. The 21st truth is the rise of national digital strategies. Countries are developing strategies for digital currency integration, digital identity expansion, tokenized government operations, real-time economic systems. The United States needs a competitive strategy. Political willingness to support digital assets pushes America closer to adopting a national digital strategy. XRP becomes relevant in any environment where settlement efficiency is required. Political shifts give settlement assets room to grow. The 22nd truth is institutional liquidity pools. Institutions will not rely on public exchanges for settlement liquidity. They will build internal liquidity pools. These pools need digital assets that are stable, efficient, and interoperable. XRP fits this role. Political acceptance of digital assets reduces risk and increases institutional willingness to build these pools. As liquidity moves to institutions, public supply shrinks. Today's political shift accelerates this migration. The 23rd truth is system velocity. System velocity is the speed at which value moves through global networks. As velocity increases, demand for digital settlement assets grows. Political acknowledgement of digital transformation accelerates the speed at which financial systems upgrade. Every upgrade increases settlement demand. Every demand increase raises the importance of assets like XRP. This is how political tone affects value indirectly. The 24th truth is infrastructure absorption. Once XRP begins supporting institutional corridors, the XRP used in those corridors is not coming back to exchanges. It becomes part of financial infrastructure. This absorption is permanent. Political clarity accelerates corridor activation. Corridor activation absorbs supply. Supply absorption leads to scarcity. Scarcity increases the strategic value of every XRP held by early adopters. What happened minutes ago pushes the system closer to this absorption phase. The 25th truth is buffer liquidity. Institutions need buffer liquidity to stabilize digital settlement flows. This liquidity must be reliable and accessible instantly. XRP is one of the few assets capable of serving this purpose. Political support for digital assets increases institutional confidence, to allocate liquidity into digital settlement assets. The 26th truth is settlement consolidation. As the world transitions to digital settlement, fragmented systems will consolidate into unified networks. Consolidation requires interoperability. Interoperability requires neutral liquidity. Neutral liquidity requires assets like XRP. Political recognition increases the pace of consolidation. The 27th truth is geopolitical competition. Nations are now competing to dominate digital finance. This competition accelerates blockchain development. It accelerates settlement innovation. It accelerates adoption of efficient financial rails. The United States must participate. Trump's comments indicate a willingness to compete globally in digital finance. This raises the strategic relevance of settlement assets used for global liquidity. XRP is positioned as one of those assets. The 28th truth is the psychology of markets. Markets do not respond to facts. They respond to narratives. Political narratives drive market psychology. Market psychology drives liquidity flow. Liquidity flow drives adoption. Adoption drives structural demand. Political momentum shifts the narrative. Narrative shifts move markets long before laws change. This is the moment narrative begins to turn. The 29th truth is that political power accelerates financial modernization. Institutions move faster under supportive environments. Regulators soften tone under political pressure. Banks transition faster when national leaders support innovation. The pace of modernization increases, and settlement assets become essential. This is why today matters more than people realize. The 30th truth is the long-term outcome. Political shifts lead to regulatory clarity. Regulatory clarity leads to institutional adoption. Institutional adoption leads to liquidity absorption. Liquidity absorption leads to scarcity. Scarcity leads to new value frameworks, and new value frameworks redefine digital assets forever. This is the future unfolding right now. This is why XRP holders cannot ignore what is happening. This is why political alignment matters. This is why the news from minutes ago is so important, because when politics, technology, and finance collide, a reset begins. And assets built for the reset do not rise because of hype. They rise because the world finally needs them. XRP is entering that moment, and everything is about to change. People have spent years ignoring XRP because they could ignore it. Now they cannot. Political recognition makes XRP harder to dismiss. Institutional interest makes XRP harder to dismiss. Global infrastructure upgrades make XRP harder to dismiss. And the moment the world can no longer dismiss it is the moment early holders gain their advantage. In part 2, we will go deeper into the institutional implications, the liquidity mechanics, the settlement transformation, and how today's political shift could accelerate XRP's role in the new global financial architecture faster than anyone expects.